What's up everyone, WizardKen here with another Xbox One World of Tanks video. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and it gets brought up in my videos and also during my live streams. And that comment or suggestion or whatever you want to call it that keeps coming up all the time is DPM, damage per minute. A lot of people like to bring that up during my live streams or on a video saying, oh, this tank is great, it's got amazing DPM and this and that. And I think a lot of people are thinking that the DPM is a stat that they can rely on. And to be honest with you, DPM is one of those stats that you can look at, but you shouldn't take it to heart. You shouldn't really sit there and think that it's a stat that has a lot of weight to it. And I'm going to explain a lot of this in a few minutes. But before we get into this, I would like to talk about a couple things real quick. As you can see, we got the Tier 8 British Tank Destroyer, the Charioteer, or however you say it. Go ahead, guys. Leave comments doing your Hooked on Phonics stuff to help me learn how to say this name. I know you guys are going to be great at it. You always break it up into little sections so that I can learn how to pronounce the name of this tank. I mean, for Jesus Christ, I used to sit there and say that. What did I used to say for Sick Fried Line? Siege Fried Line? Yeah, it's something like that. And then we start calling it Butthole Line. Until somebody broke it down for me really good, and then I started to pronounce that map. But it took me a long time to. Anyways, the other thing I wanted to say is that we will be doing the first impression video hopefully tomorrow on this tank if I have enough time. Sometimes those things take me a while to do. So hopefully we can knock this out tomorrow. Now you're probably wondering, where's the Challenger review video? You never do a first impression video on the next tank until you have the review video going. Well, to be honest with you, I am on the ladder or on the fence with this one, whether I want to fucking do this or not. As you could see, the Challenger is not in my my little search bar at the bottom, and there's a reason for that. I sold the fucking thing. I got so pissed off with it. I'm like, you know what? If I do a review video on it, I'll use old footage and talk about it, and it'll be a short and sweet video. But I fucking hate that tank so fucking much. Let me tell you this. I usually don't watch too many people's reviews on tanks, but I wanted to see what PC players and even Xbox players were thinking about the tank. And to be honest with you, I would say probably 97% of those people sat there and hated this or hated the tier 7 tank so much. Now they did amazing in the tank, like they would get 2 or 3,000 damage in the tank, but they would sit there and say, this is one good game out of probably 15 to 25 that I've played in this tank, or 50 or 100 games that I've played in this tank. They will sit there and tell you they fucking hate that tank so much, and that they just want to free XP it all the way through. For a better example, also, Bubba Wet is on the same tank line as me. He has been working his butt off on the tier 7. Now, Bubba does the same loadout as me, uses armor piercing rounds, and just rolls out there. Now, the other thing Bubba does is he doesn't use his experience points from other tanks and converts it. He never converts experience points. He likes to grind through the tanks, and if he does use free XP, it's because he's won it through battles. And that's the only time he ever uses free XP. Bubba got so pissed off with that tank that he started running all premium rounds, which cost him 40,000, anywhere between 30 to 40,000 silver a game, just running purely premium rounds. So he got so pissed off with this tank that when he was down to 50,000 experience left to go, he actually spent money to convert XP to get it out of the tank. He hated it that much. And I've never seen Bubba do that. I don't remember Bubba ever doing that. And I was like, holy shit, if my dad is that pissed off with this tank, I know there's something wrong with it. Because Bubba has gone through some shitty ass tanks and kept going. But this one, or that one, took the cake. So, yeah, that's why I haven't done a review video on it. I hate the tank. I really do, with a passion. And I really don't like saying that until I'm done reviewing the tank. But yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, if you guys are going down this line, I feel sorry for you when you hit the tier 7. It is shitty. The tier 6 I could deal with. Tier 7, no. 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 It's just crap. Um Anyways, last thing, just remember this is my opinion on the DPM. Nobody else's, not Wargaming or anybody else. This is just purely my opinion. If I do bring up anybody else's comments about the, DPM and stuff, it's purely out of just using it as a resource, not to bash them or anything like that. And I won't use names or anything like that, anyways. And yeah, so and all yeah, one more thing to mention for all of the people out there that want to sit there and say, that are the experts in World of Tanks and tell me that, my thoughts on DPM is shit and that I'm just the shittiest player in the world and that your stats are more amazing than mine. Let me tell you something. I even looked up Quickie Baby because a lot of people like to bring this up on me too, which is another video I wanted to do, but I was like, nah, fuck it. Stats. People want to sit there and say stats is everything. It's not. I told you, I like to find out if people are doing a lot of damage, how many tanks they destroyed compared to how many games they've done. Those stats matter to me. But all in all, like my win ratio and different things like that, don't mean shit to me. It really doesn't. And even Quickie Baby has sat there and said stats is a crappy thing because a lot of people like to sit there and look at stats of people and then they're like, oh god, this is going to be a crappy game. They'll go kill themselves so that they can go and play a different tank and not have to be with a shitty team. And that's why even Quickie Baby's like, stats are not everything. You should just play the game and have fun with it. But anyways, enough said. Alright, let's talk about DPM. Damage per minute. So what is DPM? As we said, damage per minute. How do you get your damage per minute? Pretty much what you do is you take your tank, you go into packages, you go to whatever package you're on, and you look at the fire rate of fire, which is rounds per minute, and then you look at the damage. And what you do is take that 9.52 and you times it by the damage, which is 230. What do you get from that? 2,189 damage per minute. Now, I don't like using damage per minute, and I made up a new word for it. It's potential damage per minute, or PDPM. That's really what people should be using. And the reason why I like to say potential is because in World of Tanks, now some games this does not affect. Damage per minute is usually damage per minute. But in most games, especially World of Tanks, the damage per minute is just something to say, hey, this is the potential of what it can do. Realistically, you're probably not going to do this much damage per minute. Okay? The reason why I want to say that is there are so many variations that could happen in a game, it's not even funny. For instance, you could be on a map, and we'll just take Lakeville, for example. And let's just say you go down the mountain path, which is the path that is completely surrounded by two mountains on either side. And there's like a little hill in the middle that you can go up, and then you eventually see the enemy team. We'll just say we go down that way. All right? And we're going against a team, and we start driving up that way, and we never run into anybody. Well, we notice on the map, all the enemy teams are in the center road, or the lake road, right there, that's next to the mountainside, and also next to the lake, or they all went to the city. And by the time we get to the enemy side to go shoot at people, everybody's dead and we lost. Well, there's a game right there that you didn't get any DPM. Okay? You should think of it as potential. I had the potential of getting there, but because nobody went this way, I didn't get that. For instance, let's do another thing. The Challenger, okay, did 171 penetration and 150 damage. I met up with a VK4502B, which is a tier 9 that you have the potential of meeting in a game. So I start shooting at this guy. Realistically, I'm probably not going to kill this guy. Why? Because he has too much armor on him. But I start shooting that little viewport at the top, taking 150 off each hit. Let's just say we get a couple of good hits in there. The amount of damage he could do to us, because the hit points on the Challenger was 840. I believe it goes up to like 900 at the end once you get all the upgrades, but we'll just go with 840 for now. Anyways, that damn thing, After probably 2 hits, you're dead from the VK4502B, or maybe his friend takes you out. So right there, you just lost your DPM because you just got taken out by a tank that does tons more damage than you. Another example. Okay, I'm going to use a lot of different examples so that nobody can sit there and say, well, what about this situation or that situation? Another situation, let's go with lower tiers, okay? Let's go with tier 7s or tier 6s, okay? Let's say we're going against a T29. T29 is a great tank to go against with the Challenger because you can actually penetrate him if you could see the whole of his body. So I start shooting at him and shooting at him. Well, I have Bubba Wet as my buddy, and he's using a T29 as well. Or maybe he's using a bigger tank. Maybe he's using a VK4502B or his ISU 152 or whatever it is. And he can do a lot of damage. Well, I get a couple of hits in that T29, but Bubba comes around and fucking one-shots the thing with one round. Technically, it's not one shot, but knocks the guy off his ass and kills him. Well, my potential for doing DPM is gone out the window for that tank because, yeah. So these are just little examples to show you guys that DPM doesn't mean you're going to get that DPM. Alright, DPM is just there to say that it could do a decent amount of damage in a minute if you can get that much rounds. To be honest with you, I never shot 13 rounds in a minute. I've never shot that many rounds. Or what was it? On the last package on the Challenger was 14.60 or something like that. I never got that many shots off on a tank. Usually after a couple hits, that fucking tank's moving away and he's not going to stay out there and let me shoot him anymore. And if there is somebody else, I might not even hit them because of roll of dice. You have RNG to worry about. You have the roll of dice and how much damage you're going to do. You have a roll of dice and even if you're even going to penetrate somebody. There's so many different roll of dice in this game. That's why I hate damage per minute being as a stat. Now, I do put that into my videos on reviews and different things like that because people like to see that, the potential of what damage they could do in a minute. But realistically, most people don't take it to heart. But there are some people that do sit there and take it to heart because they have fought with me in the comments like, oh, you just suck. Look at the damage per minute in this tank. I have talked with, other YouTubers that are like, oh, I had a great time with that tank. Damage per minute is amazing. Yes, but it really come down to, the roll of dice of what matchmaking wanted to do for me. After I bought the last package, it seemed like I was playing 6 or 7 games in a row facing tier 8s and 9s and barely any tier 7s. And then I'd get maybe 2 games where I'm facing tier 5s, tier 6, tier 7s, and that's it kind of thing. And it really was pissing me off, and that sucks, So some people are going to do okay with that tank because they're going to get better matchmaking. But a lot of us are not getting that matchmaking, and we're getting fucked over by having bigger tanks coming after us, and we can't pen them. It's just a disaster. So, all in all, just try to think of DPM as potential damage per minute. Just think of it as like, okay, this thing. When I look at DPM, for example, I look at a tank, and I'm like, wow, this tank can actually do a decent amount of damage each hit. I see that its potential for damage per minute is 3,000. So that must mean either it shoots fast or it can do a decent amount of damage each shot. And then that's what leads me to go and look at the rate of fire and then the amount of damage it can do. And then also the penetration, because I need to make sure that whatever tanks I'm going against, even though it says, for instance, the Challenger, even though right now we can do in the Challenger 2,194 damage. But if we're going against, we'll just say, for instance, all VK4502Bs. Okay? I can't penetrate that fucking tank unless I can get on the side of it. The potential of me actually damaging that tank and actually doing a decent game that round is pretty much like 5%. I'm probably going to do shitty in that tank. And it really, really sucks. Now, some of you guys are probably thinking now, well, WizardKen, if you can't penetrate somebody in a tank, you need to use armor-piercing rounds. Well, let's look at the armor-piercing rounds of the Challenger and see how much that actually can penetrate. Now, the potential on that is 239 from the 171 that we get with the standard armor piercing rounds, which is a huge difference. I mean, almost 75% more, or increase in penetration, which is amazing. Which is amazing. But going back to what I was telling you about Bubba switched to all premium rounds. Okay. Now, of course, realistically, you shouldn't do that because it's going to run up a lot of silver. But the premium rounds cost so much on that tank. It's not even funny. Like I said, Bubba shot 30 rounds and he had to pay like 40,000 plus silver, in into that. And so every game he was negative 40,000 or negative 30,000. He never came in the positive with that tank shooting those premium rounds. So if we go realistically, we put majority armor piercing rounds on there, and then we put 10 or 15 premium rounds on the Challenger and take that thing out. We still are running into the problems of potentially the roll of dice bouncing the shot, or RNG allowing us to miss the shot and stuff like that. I mean, we just showed you an IS3 video where I could not hit anything the entire game pretty much until the very, very end. So RNG can happen. And so your 10 or 15 premium rounds just went right out the window because RNG just fucked you over. So, but getting that, now we're starting to talk about RNG and stuff, and the potential of penning and different things. But realistically, okay, you guys need to sit there and take the DPM per minute and just, okay, that's a neat stat to see that I have the potential of making that much damage, but realistically, you're never going to make that much damage in a minute, okay? I have my Waffle E100, and that's probably one of the best tanks to get the potential damage per minute, or the DPM that you see in the stats. But to be honest with you, using that tank, I still have to worry about my buddy shooting at a tank. I mean, I've tried and tried to sit there and get the DPM that I've seen in the stats, but I just can't get it because I get the roll of dice of damage. Sometimes I hit hard, sometimes I hit little. Sometimes I pen, sometimes I don't. Sometimes somebody else shoots the tank and kills it before I can finish off getting my DPM. It's really, really up in the air whether you're going to get that DPM. Plus, you could be going against lower tanks. Like I was saying, taking the Challenger, I saw a couple of tier 5s and tier 6. Even if I sat there and shot like 3 tanks in a row that are medium tanks or light tanks, I would probably never reach that 2,194 damage per minute. One, they'd probably kill me and blow me up. But number two, a lot of those tanks, their hit points aren't that high. So you're not going to get that damage. So you'd have to face higher tiers to potentially get that DPM. And I went against a Tiger, which wasn't bad to go against, and a Tiger 2. But the problem is that I was sitting there shooting 150, 150, 150 off of him, 125 off of him. And it was just taking so long to kill him. He eventually just looked at me like, shoot fly, don't bother me, and blows me up. Another reason I want to talk about DPM, and this is probably where we're going to wrap it up, is I wanted you guys to look at the DPM of the Challenger, which we've been talking about a lot, 2,194.5, compared to the tier 8 Chariot tier or whatever DPM per minute. Now, I do have the second package on this tank because it was free to get, free to XP on, because I had already unlocked this gun with the AT-15. So it was already unlocked. I just had to pay the silver for it. Anyways, so let's look at the damage per minute on this tank. So the rate of fire is 9.52, which is a lot less than the 14.6 or whatever of the Challenger. Now, the damage on this tank is 230, which is a lot more than the 150 that we were getting with the Challenger. Now, if we times the 9.52 times 230, and what does that come up to? 2,189.6. What the hell? This does less DPM than the Challenger? Holy shit. The Challenger is an OP tank. Holy fuck. It's so OP. Now, bear in mind, we do only have the one package on this tank unlocked, and eventually we will get the tier 10 gun, which, of course, does 390 damage and stuff like that. But you know, let me find my phone real quick. Let me find my phone real quick. Let's look at the rate of fire, the DPM of the last package of this tank. Let's look at this real quick. 5.94 times 390. Okay? If you guys are doing the math like I am right now, that is 2,316.6. So the DPM with the last gun is about 110 points above the Challenger. So technically the Challenger is still in this race. Technically. And you guys are probably like, well, why is... No, 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 no. That can't be right. Do the math. Okay, the DPMs of the Challenger is 2,194. The first upgrade on the tier 8 is 2,189. So the Challenger is beating this tank until it actually reaches its last package. And you guys are probably like, oh, that's bullshit. Well, this is the reason why I want you guys to look at other stats other than just DPM. Because there's people out there that look just at the DPM. Okay? You need to look at the amount of penetration. Just because I have the potential of doing 2,194 damage in the Challenger doesn't mean I'm going to get it. Okay? I only do 171 penetration. And like we talked about in this scenario, we're going against a VK4502B. What happens? We're probably going to get our asses kicked. And we're probably going to die because we can't penetrate that armor. Now, we're using the first package of the tier 8. That does only 2,189 damage. But we have the potential of actually beating the Challenger on its damage because of how much penetration this tank can actually do. 226, which without having, and that's without you having to use premium rounds, would do 258. So if we used even some premium rounds with this tank, we're actually going to be doing a lot better than the Challenger. So all in all, make sure when you're looking at the stats of a tank online and different things like that, and people are like, oh my god, the DPM of this tank is so fucking amazing. Just remember, don't get your head all in a tizzy and think, oh my god, I gotta have that tank. The damage per minute is so amazing. The potential of actually shooting a fucking tank and them being perfectly hit and you getting the fullest amount of damage and everything is... it's just crazy, okay? It's just... for instance... Okay, let's take another tank, for instance, real quick for this DPM. Just remember, put potential in the front of it. You had the potential of doing that much damage, but really, there's so many other factors in this that you're better off just looking at the rate of fire, looking at how much pen you're going to do, looking at the damage that each shot does, and then sitting there and being realistic on it. Okay, I'm a tier 8. I'll be facing tier 9s and 10. I only do 200 penetration, so I should be good against going against tier 6, tier 7s, tier 8s, some tier 9s, and then tier 10s I'm going to have a challenge with. That's how you should look at it. Sit there and think, okay, if I go against tier 10s, I'm probably going to have a struggle. Alright, that's one way to do it. The other thing I want to point out is, let's look at the Death Star and the amount of damage it can do per minute. So it only can shoot 2 rounds in a minute, and the amount of damage it could do potentially in one shot is 1,150. All right, so we're going to this is just with armor piercing rounds. So let's look at that. That's 2,300 damage if the roll of dice is good and if we hit and stuff like that. Because look at the fucking accuracy, 0.40. These fucking rounds like to fly all over the place. Now let's look at the premium rounds that I like to use on there. The was it hash or heat? I think you guys said it's heat. I always fucking forget which ones are on this tank. So let's times that. 2 rounds times 1,750. So we have the potential of doing 3,500 damage in a minute. In a minute. Okay? Technically, you're probably not going to get it in a minute because when you shoot and you reload, you got to make sure that you have an enemy and you're just, lined up to shoot them as soon as that round goes off, and you'll probably get it at like 61 seconds instead of 60 seconds. So that's just me being a dick. Anyways, but think about it though. But still, the RNG could fuck you over in this thing. The roll of dice and how much damage you're gonna do in this thing. I've I have sat there, and you guys have seen it in the live stream. I have done the potential of like 1,000, whatchamacallit. I have done like, it was hash rounds. I was right. Like 1,900 damage on an IS-7. Okay? And then I've gone and shot a different IS-7 in the very exact spot, and the damage where I shot at was only 500. I'm like, what the fuck? See, so when you look at damage per minute, just remember there is a roll of dice factor in this game. Don't expect yourself to be amazing at getting the DPM. You're never probably ever going to reach a DPM in a tank. It would be very, 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 very rare, because everything would have to go your way. You'd have to have multiple tanks in your line of sight. You'd have to have, every round penetrate fully and do the max damage that it could do. And I could tell you this, it's not going to happen in World of Tanks. So stop sitting there and thinking DPM is the most amazing stats that you guys could look at and think of it as a god kind of thing, and think of it as a potential damage. And then start looking at all the other factors as well, and then putting it together and then figuring out how to use your tank to its best ability. Really, remember guys, what it comes down to when you're playing these games is the map you're on, roll of dice, and player experience. Okay? That's really what it comes down to. That's really what, and also tanks. Sorry, whatever tank you're using, but that really that wraps into experience of a player, because a really good player can take the shittiest tank that I hate and dominate me because they know how to play it. Okay, so really remember map. Okay, roll of dice and player. Those are your main things you need to look at when you're playing this game. So, anyways, guys, I'm WizardKen. Till next time, see ya.